see you. Well, as championship standings go, it's going to come down to the wire, or it may just come down to this race. And what a track it is. The home of where Michael Schumacher won the 1995 Formula One Championship. We head to Okayama for round 11 of the IMSA Vintage Series live here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Hello, everybody. I am Craig King, and with me in the booth tonight is Alex Goldschmidt. Joining us in the director's chair, is Christian Deploy, because he'll be using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. It's a track that has quite recently celebrated its 35th birthday. But to find out more about this iconic place, let's head to our GSRC track guide.
To Okayama International Circuit. Located an hour's drive northeast of its titular city, it sits nestled among the green, lush hills in southern Japan. Built in 1990, it's most well known for the two visits Formula One made in 94 and 95. But since then, national and international touring car series have come to race here as well. Otherwise, the two available layouts are mostly used for club racing and amateur track days. The full course is just under 4 kilometers with 11 turns, and the short version is a measly 2 kilometers with 7 turns. It does this by cutting out the portion between Williams and Revolver. While hairpins abound throughout the lap, overtakes tend to be surprisingly hard. The first corner, Atwood Curve, and Hairpin are the main spots where drivers can attempt a traditional pass. Hairpin makes for unique battles though. The unusually steep banking for a road course, plus the switch back into Revolver, means that holding it around the outside can reward a brave driver. However, while it is a more modern facility, runoff in some places is shockingly small, and it can be easy to damage your car. This section in particular around Revolver, Piper, and Redmond gets slightly claustrophobic. The pit entry requires some practice since you must use the inside lane of Mike Knight, otherwise you'll get a penalty. While it might not see as much use in the real world, here on iRacing this track is part of the base content, and so new road racers will find themselves here frequently. With it being suitable for a wide range of styles of cars, it's sure to excite many of the competitors who tackle it.
Alex, we just saw there a track that's got a lot of overtaking opportunities and a lot of tight corners.
Yeah, I mean, just 2.3 miles, 11 turns, a lot of elevation changes here, Craig. It is going to really, really put the cat amongst the proverbial pigeons here at Okayama, also known as originally TI Circuit AIDA and the home of the Pacific Grand Prix in the mid-1990s for Formula One. So these drivers are going to have a test on their hands tonight.
Yeah, really good test out there. Look for opportunities after the Atwood Curve as well at turn 4. That uphill sweeping right-hander sets you up to the hairpin corner. And if you've ever watched any sort of broadcast on iRacing, that 5 to 9 segment there in the middle of the track, what a combination that it provides for side-by-side racing. But we got to get there first, and there'll be a lot of side-by-side racing when we come to the multi-class. But before that, let's talk about the championships. And like I said, we could see some championships clinched today. Drop rounds are in effect, and Jacob Reed has a 28-point lead to Valenteus. Basically, the way we're trying to work out the maths, it's 25 points for a win. I think Reed would need a couple DNFs for Valenteus to take the championship. Behind, real close battle for the rest of the podium. Christopher Lesjak 57 points behind, just 4 points ahead of Gabriel Martinez. Jack Wells is on the outside looking in, but anything can happen. You just got to keep your eyes out there. And of course, a shout out to Lals Olsen, just holding the top 10. Milo Jachari 1 point behind him in 11th. The GTOs, Alex, they're kind of similar with kind of the same results in hand.
Yes, indeed. Noel Lundberg leading on 194 points, just ahead of one race win ahead of Joran Verhikse, and then Jonny Hagner rounding out the top 3, which are really, really close. Of course, Mickey Frierson rounding out the top 4. A further 20 points behind Verhikse at the moment. Josh Brain, he's a little bit further away than he probably would have liked, but rounds out your top 5 ahead of Doug Cloud, Andreas Schuster, Ian Haycox, Ilka Kotisalo and Jack David Spickett, always regulars here on GSRC, and it's good to see them trying to fight their way up the order, but they round out the top 10 in the standings.
Yeah, it's the same basic thing there for Lundberg. Van Hicht would have to have Lundberg have 2 DNS. That's kind of the thing. We'll get to the juniors later, of course. We don't have the standings at hand, but similar permutations. And let's go to the track information and the race information because, as I said, round 11 of 12, and we're done with the endurance races now for the rest of the season. We're back to the sprints, but it is an open setup. So bring up what you make or use a setup the community provides. Fantastic community of the IMSA Vintage, but you crash, you're done for the day. There is no spare car. So be careful out there. Drive through at 17 incident points. Additional penalties. It will be a disqualification at 25. Like I said, with such a tight track and a lot of grass and barriers on the side, maybe seeing some of the drivers at the back may hit that. But one thing you want to hit with 3 days left to go is the iRacing Black Friday sale. It is ending this Tuesday. So if you're watching this next week on a repeat, what are you doing? You've missed your chance. 50% off brand new memberships. That's what I did years ago. 25% off early renewals and reactivations if you are a member or looking to come back in. What a time to come back with Season 1 looking stacked once again for content. And these drivers will be having to look at some of that content. But qualifying currently underway. David Ricciardi, who is leading or one of those battlers in the juniors. And to say how it is close for them, just needs to finish ahead of Emilio Dicciari, and he gets the championship. But Henning Swevig takes that provisional pole.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very, very quick on the lap times here, around about 1 minute and a quarter in the GTPs, but then the GTOs. At the moment, it is Joni Hagner that's leading ahead of Andreas Schuster with Ian Haycox rounding out the top 3. We're looking at about an 11-second differential here, Craig, when it comes to the GTPs and, of course, the wonderful Audi IMSA GTOs. I still remember seeing the car that was driven by Stritzelstück in the Audi Forum in Ingolstadt, and it's a wonderful car. It's a great classic, and it's one of the cars we love to hear roar around the circuits here on iRacing.
Yeah, and it's also one of the tougher cars to drive on iRacing due to that blipping that you need. But you see Noah Lundberg will be coming through just some of the final sections here. The championship leader maybe could get that championship sorted. But look how tight these corners are. He's just gone through Hobbs, and now he's getting ready to go through Mike Knight. You don't want to cut that too much. You'll get a slowdown in the race. So you have to be careful here now to literally named last corner. And of course, it is the last corner. You've got to love the Japanese naming conventions around here. Needs to find something better than a 26.6. Well, it's not a lap. He's actually his out lap as Jacob Reed is currently setting the pace. He's on his second lap, and the speed differences here, as you mentioned, the 11-second delta difference. You can just see the speed differences coming around these final corners. Yeah,
that probably will indicate maybe within the first quarter of this 40-minute sprint race here, Craig, that the GTPs will quickly close on in at the on the GTOs. I mean, I had the opportunity to commentate on Super GT earlier on this year, and I saw the biggest Code Brown Hail Mary from Zach O'Sullivan in a GT3 car coming out of Mike Knight corner, funnily enough, as we're on board with Valentasius at the minute, who is currently running on a 1:22, but that's an outlap, so hopefully the Lithuanian is going to really start stealing himself going through turn 6 and 7. Then it's the quick shoot, a bit like the Cooper straight down into Surtees at Paddock, Brands Hatch, going through Redmond. Then it's up the hill, and then it's up the hill again through turn 9. You've got to be very tight and technical, and then bury the throttle for the short blast into Mike Knight corner. You're going downhill, and Audrius does a very, very nice clean job. This could be a pretty quick lap here as he comes out of final corner across the line, and that is a 1:15. So still, that is going to put him top of the timesheets by nearly 1/10 of a second, 3/4 of a tenth thereof ahead of Jacob Reed as we see Noel Lundberg in the number 4 car still leading the way in the GTO qualifying by 3.5 tenths ahead of Joni Hagner.
Yeah, good time there as Joni Hagner just not getting things linked up today. And the track that most drivers are used to now, it's a free track. They've been using it a few times since it's been remade on iRacing. And you see Noah Lundberg just attack the hairpin corner, a little bit of banking there, which is always makes things interesting. Again, as you can see, this elevation change, you don't talk a lot about it when you get to the race, but in these situations, when you get this, and you can see why you see a lot of side-by-side action around this section, because you can't really get the throttle down to get a move, hit around the outside. Bit of a lock-up here. Lundberg's trying to find more time. I don't know what he's looking for. Maybe a sub 26. One of the only GTOs out there at the moment. I think Van Hicks might be the only one else left to set a time out there. No other GTPs able to set a time to beat Jacob Reed or Valenteas. Lundberg's just doing this for fun. Just dips a tire into the grass. He won't have to worry about sharp gravel cutting those tires up like in Qatar. But he cannot go better. In fact, he goes 100 slower than what he set first time.
I think the biggest problem there for Lundberg was just trying to chip away at, you know, those tenths, those thousandths of a second, and that was going to be the big difference for him, as we've got Daniel Ruiz and Christopher Staverman out on the circuit. Staverman down at the bottom of the GTO classification. His best lap so far, a 1:37.913, but that will be pretty much an outlap at the moment. He's looking a lot better at the time. Could improve by the best part of maybe 5 seconds as he comes across the line. 1:31.866, but that puts him ahead of the car of James Morgan, as we've had the checker out for qualifying. And, well, would you believe it? We've got 2 drivers that secured pole in their respective classes.
We do indeed, and let's go through the GTPs. I'll give you those, and Alex will get you the GTOs, because Valenteas and Reed, number 1 and number 2, are number 1 and number 2. Once again, Henning Swebig with a fantastic qualifying into 3rd, with Christopher Lesnachak in 4th in that battle for the final podium spot. Gabriel Martinez is 5th, so that's going to be good for Christoph. Dylan Freckleton will be in 6th, with Shadi Ahmad making a return in 7th. Fabian Jungluth will be in 8th, followed by Matthew Cockerham in 9th. And Jesus Sanchez Morales will round out the first page, and then just 7 more drivers, as David Ricciardi does take first blood in this battle for the GTOs. He'll be 11th. Brendan Lim will be in 12th. Emilio Dicciari in 13th. Gianluca Gabbiani will be 14th, with Andre Felipe Diaz in 15th. Samuel Nuicha will be the last of the time qualifiers in 16th, with Daniel Ruiz not setting a time for the 17 GTPs. What about those GTOs?
Noel Lundberg takes pole position ahead of Joni Hagner, and they'll line up on the front row. Andreas Schuster and Joran Verhigse will be on row 2. Ilka Cottisalo and Roman Billo will be on row 3, ahead of Arturo Scondelis and Ian Haycox, rounding out your top 4 rows, with Martin Krzyzewski and Matthias Havdal rounding out your top 10. We then turn the page, because there's a lot of GTOs to get through. Josh Brain and Timothy Reed on row 6, Thorben and Paulik and Brandon White row 7, Stefan Leslie and Richard Heinemann on row 8, Anna Van Zelst and Ryan Turcott row 9, Christopher Staverman and James Morgan rounding out the top 20. We've got 22 GTOs set to take part, with Jack David Spickett and David Tomaski not having set a lap time, and they'll round out the back row of the GTOs, Craig.
Yeah, just a small development, as Ian Haycox unfortunately just had a disconnect. So that might be a pit lane start there for Ian. We'll wait and see. Myself and a legend of Mick Claridge, and a shout out to the Mackenzie boys, as he usually does, have been talking while we've been waiting for the grid elsewhere. And it's a very interesting fact here, because the Valenteas and Reed are side by side practically a lot of the time in these races and in their times. But it feels like that Valenteas, he gets that pace down. He is such a good lapper. But when it comes to consistency, when it comes to the multi-class ethic, Jacob Reed somehow has managed to really nail down a lot of this multi-class aspect. And in these older GTPs and these GTOs, it's not like your modern day LMP2s and GTPs and your GT3s or GT3 LL. You get the idea. A lot of different methods and actions that you need to go here as the drivers will get ready. The pace car cuts in at Mike Knight's corner, so that means Valenteas will have control of the field here. 21 Celsius, 70 Fahrenheit. It's the middle of the day, sim time for the drivers. If you're wondering about the wind, there is a 25-kilometer-an-hour wind going northwest. That's going to be a lot of tailwind today, but only one tail we need to see. And can Valenteas pull ahead of Jacob Reed? Hopefully look to keep that championship battle going. We're getting ready for 40 minutes here at Okayama for round 11 of the IMSA Vintage Series, and he's waiting for it. Here he goes. Valenteus absolutely gets it cold napping again to Jacob Reed. Henning Square is going to try and make that overtake, and Reed decides it's not worth the overtake at the moment. He allows that to happen. Meanwhile, in the back, just a few more positions going. Dylan Freckleton are going wide. Reed takes back that P2. GTOs are just coming up to the behind them.
Yeah, Lunenburg leading the way ahead of Hagner. Van Hicks has gotten up to P3 already, so has made a quick jump on the rest of the opposition, who were caught a little bit napping, so to speak. Schuster, Cotisalo, Kundelis, Bello, Krzyżerek, Brain and Havdal round out the top 10 at the moment, but it's getting a bit fruity as Reed to the outside of Schwebig. That's a brave manoeuvre there at turn 5 at the hairpin.
Yeah, needed to do that because they don't want to be mixing up this early to allow Valenteus to get a lead. Seeing the GTOs, really good start there for Van Hicks. Going up one position already, and this is what he needs. Catch up to Hagner, catch up to Lundberg. Just what he needs in this race. And Ian Haycox is trying to climb back into the car, and I think he has made it at the moment. Yeah, he has indeed. With a pit lane start, as you see, on the back here of Lundberg. And I would not surprised to see if they just go past a spinning GTP of Ruiz. Would not be surprised to see these cars not look for any early overtakes here going into the first corner, especially when you've got a GTP coming back to the main track.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, Lunenburg kicked up the dust with the left rear tyre coming through Mike Knight corner as Ruiz will storm his way through. Kundelis looking on a move on Cotisalo into first corner, but had to back out of it very, very quickly indeed. But in the twisty stuff, looks like Kundelis has got the run on Cotisalo at the moment as they go through Williams down into the Moss S's at turn 3 and then into Atwood Curve. Slight dip, bit of a dip through the Moss S's, as it is basically straight line formation at the moment with the GTOs, as Ruiz is now about to fly his way past. But Stefan Leslie has got a big old battle. He's got the likes of, well, that was Jack David Spickett making his way past Richard Heinemann. And let's not forget that Jack David Spickett did not set a lap time in quali, and he's already motoring his way to nearly halfway up the field in GTO.
Yep. Already up 7. Well, hello, Stephanie Leslie, just going straight on there. Almost looked like hardware failure or something there, as he just had to just pull off to one side. Here's a man that's not looking like to go off to one side. Joni Hagner trying to finish this move. At a real good time to set this up a few corners ago, but now he's got to go around the outside of Hobbs, and that's not doable. Every other corner he's managed to go the inside, and then through Piper, through Revolver, tried to get to Redmond, was still side by side, but then finally had the outside at Hobbs, unable to do anything. The elevation change really not working for him, but that's the first sign that he's looking a little bit racy. And usually the GTOs, they like to just stick to the train for the first 20 minutes, and then when the traffic comes in, they just start to look to move. But right now, Joni Hagner's looking very comfortable here, and the car looks very comfortable through these twisty stuff at the Moss S's.
Yeah, it looks like Lunenburg's running a little bit loose on the back end of his number 4 car as we're running aboard with Joran Verhikse, who is also looking very, very comfortable. It looks like they've set up their cars very, very compliant with the elevation changes, and you can see with the damper rebound on both Hagner and Verhikse, it is not as you rightly said, Craig, not an easy car to drive as they go through into the hairpin, and then it's going to be down the dip through Piper and Revolver. And this is where things get a little bit tricky in these GTO cars. You can see that the debris is being kicked up all the while by Lunenburg up front, who is still holding on to the race lead, as Henning Schwebig has just come into the pits, maybe for hitting that 17X already.
No, I think Henning may have forgotten to put fuel in the car. Looking like it, in fact he is. Yeah, he's forgotten the fuel in the car. Big time disappointment there for the man who started in third in the GTP, but we're keeping our eye on the GTOs because a little bit of a gap starting to form a little bit here as Hagner managed to pull ahead of Van Hicks. It was interesting, we saw the onboard there going into the hairpin. Van Hicks just got a little bit too hot and had to turn to the left before he started turning into the right, and it has hindered here. Lundberg takes the fastest lap for the GTOs so far, 2 tenths ahead. You've got to be careful because I feel this lap we're going to see the GTPs mix in, but you can see, once I always say it's a joke, the timing tower is not bugged. Valenteus and Jacob Reed do have an almost 3-second lead on the rest of the field while we're watching the GTOs The top two are 3 seconds ahead of everybody, but the rest of the GTO field, they're all together.
That's one of the big things, is there we see Emilio Di Ciari from Argentina running 11th in the GTP side of things, and he's trying to close in on Brendan Lim and Matthew Cockerham, who are just up ahead, not that far. It's about 1.1 seconds covering this trio of drivers. But again, just the tightness of Okayama just really means that your skill set has to be on point. And we know, Craig, that these drivers will have put in a hell of a lot of seat time ready to get ready for this race, because, of course, you say that championships may very well be wrapped up today. It's all about bringing your A game to Okayama.
It's always about the A game here. It's a track that some people don't like to tackle, but other people love the challenge that this Japanese track does provide. It's almost like a hidden sleeper here in Japan, but it's tried and tested and very loved in iRacing. And you see Tachari just waiting for the moment. I'm looking at the map. You see Cotasala here with Kundalis. I'm just looking at the track map. I do think the GTP leaders will be hitting some of that traffic shortly. In fact, they have. In fact, Jacob Reed had a moment out there. He's lost a lot of time. Yeah, he got stuck behind the GTO there, one of the back-marking GTOs, and lost a lot of time. But, as I was saying at the start of the race, Jacob Reed is a fantastic traffic management driver. Mateus is good. He's got a real good confidence. But for Jacob Reed, there's something about him that just makes you look and go, how do you do that with so much ease? Because you're not even being aggressive.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to car control and self-confidence more than anything, as Vanatacious just wheeling his way through. That just goes to show how quickly these GTPs will thread the eye of the needle, as we are only 7 minutes in, and here comes Jacob Reed with a head full of steam, and he's not giving quarter to the GTOs and saying, right guys, get out of my way.
Yeah, get out of my way indeed. And just looking as well, the GTP Junior Jet leader, David Ricciardi, having a little bit of a spin, and you can just see he's getting caught up here. Well, with now Matthew Cockerham. Matthew Cockerham went into the back of him. Emilio Tachari gets on by. That would be good for Emilio, but he needs a little bit more help if he wants to try and get back in that fight for the GTP Juniors. The under 3K drivers. Joni Hagner still battling. Now it's really starting to look. You get through the first corner. You get past Williams. And it does feel like Van Hicks is just struggling out there a little bit. Maybe just heating those tires up a little bit. In fact, he's gone deeper again. I know that Yoni's been changing around with gear stacks and different things the last few weeks, but I don't think that's what's causing Van Hicks the issue. I think Van Hicks is just outbreaking himself here.
Yeah, I mean, carrying too much speed into the corners will always give that air of too much momentum. And Van Hicks, if he's doing that, that is really going to cause him problems later on in the race. If he's overdriving the car, then the tyres are going to drop off the proverbial cliff. But Hagner really closing into Lüneburg for that race lead. And you can just see, bit of a wide berth there from Van Hicks. And that nearly gave Schuster the opportunity to dive up the inside of the number 5.
Yeah, once again, it was just some late braking here. Here's a replay of Christopher Ledgertrack. He's had to take a tow coming around one of these corners. And, that looks like the Moss S's there, trying to weave into a line that probably was there, and just not the awareness by both drivers. It does take two to tango when it comes to multi-class racing, and unfortunately, one driver wanted to do the tango, one driver wanted to do the paso doble. And here's Joni Hagner getting through a lot of markers, but that's a big moment there, and Joni Hagner will take the lead, and Schuster, he gets pushed off the track.
Well, I think he might have, yeah, because, I mean, it looked like it was a slight shove, but Lüneburg just went completely wide coming out of the corner, and that was going through, I think, through into Williams at turn 2. And that is just how difficult things can be around this circuit. And now Jacob Reed, you can see he's trying to close in on Vanatacious. The gap is now about 8 and a bit tenths of a second, but that gap is now closing. You can see as we got picture-in-picture, Dylan Freckleton trying to go through for the inside move on Shady Ahmad, and got the move done. That was neatly done at the hairpin at turn 5. So the man from the Isle of Man manages to get through and keeps that position through the downhill slant at Piper and Revolver. But look, the two leaders, there's next to nothing in it. You can see the Valentatius trying to get through, Reed trying to get through. They're going through at Mike Knight corner, down the hill into last corner. Round the outside goes Jacob Reed. Little bit of a love kiss to the gravel on the outside of the left sidewalls on the GTP, but he made it look rather effortless.
Yeah, now he's got two cars though between Valentatius and Reed. And I was just looking back, I'll have to just retract my statement. Lundberg was not pushed off, he just went a bit too wide. I think the tyres were just saying no and understeered there, pushed him into the barrier. It's going to be interesting to see what damage he's carrying with that, because that's quite a hit to the tyre barrier. But look at this, Jacob Reed is missing out right now. And I'm going to be wondering right now, is he going to catch up to these cars before the hairpin? And if he doesn't, Valentatius is going to get 3 cars between him and Jacob Reed, and the answer is yes. And you can have all the confidence in the world to overtake a driver at the last corner. He can't even get it here through Revolver. He's really having to wait because he realizes it's a top 3. He's giving all the space and respect he needs to, but at some point, these drivers have to accept that multi-class traffic giveth and multi-class traffic taketh, and unfortunately for Jacob, it's taken him away from the lead.
Yeah, so we're going to have a look at a replay here for Noel Lundberg, and you're just going to see he's going to turn the car in, it understeers to the right, and then watch, bang, right rear hits the wall. So that car might have a little bit of damage to that right rear, so he's going to be struggling a little bit, but he's keeping within a second of Andreas Schuster. So I mean, he's running quite good on the times. Joran Verhix has just done a 126.5. Noel Lundberg was only 7/100ths back, so I think it was just a glancing blow, and Lundberg was very lucky that that car did not have the right rear hit the wall, and then it speared the right front into the wall, and then that would have been double bubble for the man from the Netherlands.
It wasn't anything like the crash at the Adelaide Race 33 yesterday in Supercars, and Adelaide is coming, of course, to iRacing soon, so that's a good little segue, but it was a very heavy hit yesterday. It wasn't as heavy there for Noel Lundberg as got Roman Bello here at the moment, just looking behind. He's got Josh Brain, but he's also just seeing a stream of GTPs take the chance to go on by past him. Get back to the lead, and I can see a purple car, and it's going to be Dylan Frackleton right behind, as he's still battling Gabriel Martinez, and they're going to go 2 by 2 as they go leaders in the GTOs, get overtaken by P3 and trying to be P4 for the GTP. Gabriel's having a little bit of issue here, trying to go around the outside of Hobbs, gets it done, and almost had a little bit of a slide there. There are corners you can go around the outside here, Alex. I don't think if I was a driver, I want to try and go around the outside of Hobbs.
No, outward curve is one you definitely don't want to chance it with, to be completely honest with you, because that gravel is very inviting, and one wrong slip and it's game over. As now Verhix is right with Hagner as they've got the number 19 going around the outside. So that's going to be quite interesting to see. You just have to wonder how much of these, you know, these GTO drivers, as Verhix coming through the Moss S is right on the rear of Hagner, going through into Atwood, and Brendan Lim now trying to close in on Fabian Jungluth in the number 15 car. Emilio Di Ciari has now moved up to P8, the Argentinian, making some really, really good work behind the wheel and just timing his moments. Okayama is a circuit where you not just have to have the speed, you have to have patience.
Yeah, and some people would probably look at what happened there when you saw Van Hicks looking, because the door was open there. Hagner had to allow the GTPs to get into the inside line for hairpin, and there was a little bit of a door open, but the way Hagner put his car just a little bit more central to the track, no chance for Van Hicks to do a late lunge, and it's so hard to outbrake anybody in a GTO. So that is what you say, it's patience. You just have to wait here, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. Not a lot of overtakes happening. I say that. Hard charges in the GTPs. Lim and Di Ciari up 5. Hard charger in the GTOs. Everyone's doing about up 1, up 2. Jack David Spick is up 11. So at the moment, it's still quiet days. And another set of cars going as we see a quick replay here of Guanyuka Gabbiani. Just having a small moment out there. And yeah, just too tight there. And something's got to give. You've got to turn in at some point there, and I think that was the door that was always closing.
Yeah, that's a real shame for Gabbiani. I mean, it just goes to show how quickly things can turn on a sixpence as Gabby Martinez battling away for position with Dylan Freckleton. They've now come through the hairpin, now into Piper and down the hill into Revolver. They're only a car length apart, so Martinez keeping with Freckleton, but the gap between Freckleton and Reed is now a whopping 10.2 seconds. We've got Davide Ricciardi in the number 27, currently behind Andreas Felipe Diaz. Diaz up 4 places. So we've seen quite a few moves up the order in terms of the GTPs. Brendan Lim and Emilio Dicciari up 5 places apiece. But the biggest mover so far, Jack David Spickett, from basically 21st on the grid, now runs a genuine P10, and he's closing on Martin Krejcik for 9th position, and he's just got through on him. Oh!
And we got crashed together in Freckleton and Martinez had gone together, and they were side by side. In fact, Freckleton tried to go for a line that was always closing there for what you can say with Martinez. An interesting moment there because it didn't look like the door was always going to be closing and Gabri was turning in. Dylan was a little bit ambitious there, holds on to the position, but now they got Shadi Ahmad. He's had a little bit of a break in the series and come back, the man who claims he hails from the Democratic Republic of Congo. He might be right, but right now he's got Gabri Martinez. And the interesting thing, they came together, did those two. You're going to have to just keep your eyes on that camera, folks. I don't think they got much damage, but these are carbon fiber, not single panel, because that was ruled out a few years ago. But these cars, they are quite fragile sometimes when a driver hits them.
Yeah, as we saw with Nucci a little bit earlier on when we saw the front cowling of the GTP car go literally exit stage left when he got turfed into the barriers at the Moss S's. But Dylan Freckleton with fire spitting from the GTP car comes out of final corner and across the line. And because of that contact with him and Martinez, that's put the gap between second and third to a whopping 16.5 seconds. As now we're going to see possibly a move here. Ian Haycock's through, trying to get through on Ernesto Van Zelst. And deep on the brakes goes the man from the UK in the number 21, gets through on the number 32 from the Netherlands. Nice move from Ian Haycock. That's how you make a manoeuvre through at the hairpin. As the recovering Stefan Leslie closing in on Richard Heinemann in the number 37 for 17th place. That's 32nd overall in the GTOs as the GTP fires its way through up on the inside. That's Jacob Reed, who's now managed to get the gap down to Aldrius Valentasius to around about the 2-second mark. Bearing in mind he lost about 1.4 seconds when Valentasius managed to put 3 cars between himself and the man in the number 2 car.
Yeah, and now there's not many cars ahead of them, so Reed's going to now look to see if he can open the gears a bit now and make some moves as Norlumber trying to make a recovery drive. Schuster was losing a bit of time out there to the rest of the field, but has managed to catch up to Hagner and Van Hicks, and Van Hicks is going to need a little bit of help, and Schuster going over the line there at Revolver once again. And yes, you do have the ability there because of where Revolver is, the Revolver into Piper. You've got that little merger into the short layout here at Okayama, so you've got a little bit of tarmac, but you don't want to run it too far there. You will take an off track, and he took another off track there, so he needs to be careful not to rack up the off track. As Noah Lundberg, well, he's just waiting now. They're coming to the halfway stage, and at some point he's going to have to put an attack on because he doesn't want to lose too much time to the leaders, because even though this might steal the championship for him, at the end of the day, he's still battling because he'd love to win a race.
Yeah, I mean, you want to cap off the title in the best way possible, which is to win against your rivals, but Lundberg really closing in on Schuster as they're now going to go through the Moss S's at turn 3. And the gap is next to nothing, around about 0.2 of a second. As, oh, now who was that by the side of the road in one of the GTO cars?
A lap car.
Yeah, lap vehicles. So Staverman was the driver on the side of the road. So the number 35, we're going to have a quick replay of what happened. Oh, he's just lost the back end. He's drifting it, Tokyo Drift starter, wallop. That's at least a 1540 right there.
That's a 1540, and to be fair, he reverses the car, and he had waited He's now finally just started driving. I've got to give some props there. He's realized the danger. He realized where he was and he waited. So a bit of props there. He's lost a lot of time, but at least he's kept the car safe and kept everyone able to drive and allowed these cars to keep on going in Lundberg. Again, we talked about it last lap. You've got to feel that at some point he needs to make a move, and so does this man. So does Gabriel Martinez, and he's going to try and do this around the outside of the hairpin. If he doesn't get it done, the outside becomes the inside for him for Revolver, and he will, but there is some traffic, and Freckleton's getting held up in the traffic, but Gabriel gets it done, and he'll try and put that car, that Van Zelt, right between him, but a mad spot responds. Onto the 007 camera we go for the purple. You can even see the purple still there from Dylan Freckleton there on the TPR inspired. But Gabri is looking for time. Oh, he almost touched the rear. That looked like a little bit of a slide there. Picture in picture. Jack David Pickett still battling on Roman Bello as well. Meanwhile, you've got more traffic coming up here from Dylan Freckleton. It's all getting a little bit dicey. Gabri's got a little bit of speed. Are we going to see an overtake? I think Dylan goes for the deep end. No. Martinez sees the door open, and he's going to try and fight this side by side. They'll go. And Gabri, with a little touch, retake P3.
Yeah, that's a little bit of Rubbings racing. As you can see, the gravel being spit left, right, and centre behind the GTPs and the GTO cars. I mean, Jack David Spickett having a great big old battle with Roman Bello, and now has pulled the pin and has gotten away to the tune of about 0.4 of a second. So Jack David Spickett up 14 places so far in this exciting close quarter fights that we've got around the circuit here at Okayama as Dylan Freckleton gets through on the number 31. That's Brandon White, 14th in the GTO class, as Jesus Sanchez Morales battling away with, I think that's Andre Felipe Diaz just behind. It is right with Davide Ricciardi in the number 27, and this is a bit too close for comfort. Down Piper and into Revolver, as Jesus Sanchez Morales has the opportunity here. He's got two cars in front of him. They are now, I'm just wondering if that is also Matthew Cockerham. So that is 4 cars battling away what is over 9th spot as they go round the outside of the number 37, Richard Heinemann, who gets in the way. Sanchez Morales dives to the inside and gets through on the 23. Oh no, well, that was Sanchez Morales. That was Felipe Diaz that got the move through, as Jacob Reed is now closing in. He's within striking distance and gets through on Andreas Schuster. Now he's got Valentasius in clear sight.
Yeah, Valentay's in clear sight, but it'll be a lap car and a lap GTP as well. And you can see that Jacob Reed needed, he realised he's worked so hard to get this gap all the way down, and he's not going to let a GTP get by. In fact, the GTP had a little bit of an off track there, but look at the gap that Hagner's pulled on Van Hicks right now, and now Reed needs to use this for his advantage, because Valentayus will either have to go aggressive here or just wait, and right on the back of him there is Jacob Reed. But I think that was just too early on the throttle there for Reed. Had to back out a little bit. I don't think he'll be close enough to make the run this time. Matthew Cockerham, you said something had to give. He's had a moment out there on track in that fantastic battle for the junior drivers. But right now, out of nowhere, Jacob Reed managed to just find some time out there. This is the Matthew Cockerham incident I was just saying. Something had to give. He backed up for a corner, and that's an interesting one there. Didn't know where to go, left, right, or centre, and the other drivers knew where they were going, right in the back of it.
Yeah, James Morgan, I think that was in the 34 that was just in front, caused that chain reaction, so to speak. He was in the way, but, you know, Matthew Cockerham should have taken a bit more due care and attention. But look now, as we go down the hill, once again, Reed is right with Valentasius as Noel Lundberg looking up the inside. That's through. Is he going to get the inside line for Piper and Revolver? No, not quite. Andreas Schuster pushes him a little bit wide. And Reed right with Valentasius as they go through turn 5. Noel Lundberg again now trying to look for the inside line into Andreas Schuster. The number 4 versus the number 6 as they're going to go up the hill. Lundberg to the outside, but Schuster's got the inside line for the corner. And at this moment, Lundberg, he's got 2 wheels on the grass coming out of turn 9 and on the run to Mike Knight corner. And now he's got the real opportunity he needs. They both come out of final corner. Lundberg is in the slipstream. He's got to wait till the last moment to pull out and put it to the inside of first corner. Lundberg's going to go deep on the brakes. He's got the inside line. Schuster's got to give him room, but he's going to have the inside line for the next corner. And Schuster still keeps a hold, but Lundberg still keeps it to the outside as they approach the Moss S's. Lundberg to the outside. He's going to make the move. He's got it.
Brilliant move, and now he has to just hold that move off. Schuster needs to back off Schuster here, and he does. And that was all set up. There was gravel on the outside of Redmond. So the moment Schuster was pushed to the outside there, he could not get the throttle down, and he was always having a little bit of momentum issues coming through Hobbs and Mike Knight, and the pressure cooker finally just expanded, and the steam came out, and that allowed Lundberg to make the move. But a great battle there by Schuster, really showing that, hey, you might be trying to crown yourself a champion today, but I'm not going to make it easy for you. But now, with 14 minutes to go, the gap is 2.5 seconds. And catching them one thing, catching them when you've got a driver right behind you is another. But he'll try to work his way up there. We've got this battle going as well. Jesus Sanchez Morales battling on Andre Felipe Diaz as they come through. The track, you would think, with the way you're seeing all the action, is pretty busy. There is a little bit of freedom on the track right now between Williams and the Moss S. Apart from that, it is a traffic jam out there right now by the drivers.
It's a bit like the M25 on a Friday night, Craig, to be completely honest with you, but you're hoping that none of the lanes have been closed. But more to the point, we've got Timothy Reed closing in on Martin Krzyzewski, and he's looking to the inside, the man who always runs with the Nissan GTP R390 tribute livery, tries to look for the inside, but Krzyzewski able to keep the momentum round the outside of the first corner and keeps a hold of 10th.
This is the important thing right now. Reed is once again on the back of Valenteus and had to go around Richard Hyman, around the outside of Hobbs. And both these drivers have shown that these last few corners, they're able to just make that move stick. But now, just hitting the grass a little bit there, the gravel there for Valenteus. But Reed has to tighten the line up there, and that did not look comfortable, the way he had to just shift the balance of the car and the downforce to turn in for Mike Knight there, or last corner, sorry, and he's lost a little bit of time. There is more traffic coming up. Henning Swebe, who never had that pit stop because he did not have enough fuel. He's dived right in front of them as well. More cars going. This could be interesting because they'll get held up coming into Atwood, and up the hill they'll go, but it's not enough for Valenteus to be hampered. Reed's going to have to look for more opportunities with 12 minutes and change remaining. The traffic though, the map, give it another lap, and I think Valenteus might have to look well behind him.
Yes, as I said earlier on, Craig, it's been about the patience, and that's what Jacob Reed has done. He's kept his head down and just gone for it and tried to close that gap. That's the first thing you've got to do. But now it's a case of wondering where he'll be monitoring how loose the back end of Valenteus's car might be at particular points on the circuit. And if he knows that, then he can start to gather that pace, gather that confidence. But once there's a bit of clear air for Valenteus, he's able to put the hammer down and get away. And Reed a little bit wide coming out of last corner, but still at this kind of pace with, what is it, 11.5 minutes to go. These laps here at Okayama have quite literally flown by, folks.
Well, Morales trying to get this on Andre Felipe Diaz. There is Jack Davis Pickett ahead of him. He's on 14 places, by the way, but Sanchez cannot get this done, and you can see round the outside of Piper. What a defense there from Andre Felipe Diaz. Real nice, and Jack Davis Pickett says, I'm going in here, and yeah, Morales was not ready for that. I think he was saying, look, I've got to get this battle going. You have to be a little bit...
I'm sorry.
That's not good.
That was a bad rejoin, and that was Timothy Reed who got the short end of the stick there. And Timothy ran about P11. He'd had a really good battle we just saw a few moments ago with Martin Krzyzewski. So, now, Henrik Schrebig we're going to see here, mechanical black flag, and that's why, round the outside, and I think that was Ian Haycock's in the 21. Oh, they both go sparring against the barriers, so that's on the back straight from Atwood down to the hairpin. Big incident.
Big incident there, trying to go around the outside, but the Audi have to check up and have to go around. They have to follow a line because they get washed out there. But there's just no washing right now. Jacob Reed is looking to put a stamp on the championship. If he gets it, you're seeing as well Thorben Pollock in the picture-in-picture. He's got Timothy Reed right behind him. But this could be interesting. Reed, if it stays like this right now, would basically have the championship wrapped up. But once again, you race to win. You play to win. This is what he wants right now. He wants a victory. We've been wanting this for a year. Valenteus, Jacob Reed, and every time they've been on the track, it has delivered. One driver makes a mistake, the other one takes advantage. Right now, it looks like Jacob Reed, he's happy enough for Valenteus to just keep on driving. The gap closes as they get through here, and more traffic will be after Mike Knight. You see Timothy Reed still battling as well in that picture-in-picture. Everybody's putting on a show today.
Yeah, it's really come down to these final 9 minutes and 20 seconds here at Okayama for the IMSA Vintage Series. I cannot believe how fast and how frantic these laps have gone by here, Craig. It just goes to show how these drivers are just absolutely giving no quarter whatsoever.
Yeah, there is no quarter out there whatsoever. And there's not even any yen to look at either, because they're not even trying to do that right now. But you can see the gaps for the leaders in both classes are close. You're not seeing anything in the GTOs because nothing's happening in the GTOs. They're playing it safe. But for these guys, where do you look right now? Every time there's a chance, and this might be it. But Reed may have just had to check up there from Valenteus, checking up on Krajcik, and he does. And even then, I think he had a little bit of wheel spin there. The turbo lag kicked in. Not what he wanted there. Reed could have used that as an opportunity to put the pressure on. Gonna have to wait. More cars coming up. Now it's 2 lapped GTPs ahead, and they're not battling. So hopefully these drivers are aware of what's right behind them.
Yeah, they've got to watch their 6. They've got to have their heads on a swivel because it's far from over. One wrong move from one of the race leaders. I mean, the thing is, Van Hixer now has closed into Joni Hagner. The gap is now 4/10 as Reed trying to get a real good run coming out of turn 9 into Mike Knight corner at 10. There's a bit of kick up from a couple of the cars in front. This could give an opportunity, maybe a little bit of slipstream here for Jacob Reed, as now he threads the eye of the needle right on the rear of Valenteus. To the outside he goes at first corner, and that's not going to be enough. He needed a bit more overspeed to get through around the outside at first corner on Valenteus.
Yeah, it looked like as well the rubber there was no rubber to be had, and once again it's interesting to see how they take the lines. Been watching the last few laps. It feels like for the last corner, Reed is kind of attacking it early, while Valenteus wants to go late in, but he keeps that pressure on. That's why he's been having to tighten up his steering a little bit. But now it looks like he wants to try and just set it up. And if he tried to set this up around the outside of the hairpin, this could be really good. They're almost touching each other. But remember, it's banked. Reed's going to have to look for the overlap, and he's got the overlap and the respect. Side by side, they'll go straight down into Revolver, and now side by side into Piper. Nothing between the two of them. Nothing to champion leader. Oh, Jacob Reed had a twitch and had to save it. Now they got a lap car coming in front of them as well. This battle is still going on. That was a fantastic catch by Reed. And now, as they come out of Hobbs, Reed thought to himself there, I just had a chance to make the move. What have I got to do to get that going? Because he had that when he managed to get that around from Revolver and Piper.
Van Hixer's really closing in on Hagner for the GTO class lead at the moment. They have just made their way through at Williams, and Van Hixer has been lapping about the best part of nearly 0.2 of a second quicker than Hagner at the moment. They go through the Moss S's, and then it's the run to Atwood Curve at turn 4. So both battles at the sharp end of the field. I think looking at it from this perspective, that Lüneburg will be on 200. Third place is 20 points, if I remember correctly, Craig, and that will put him on 233. So that might put him within a shadow, probably, well, he's currently P3 ahead of Andreas Schuster. Lüneburg is just happy. He's cruising at the moment. He's 4 seconds off of Joni Hagner up front, 4.3 seconds. So Lüneburg at the moment seems to be pretty content with where he's sitting at the moment. He doesn't need to do all that hard work because he's got himself up into the top 3.
He He's happy enough to just hold on as David Ricciardi. No, he's gone onto the side there, and that's it, Chari. And you can see, not happy with what's happened there as he goes on by. That could be important for the championship, for the juniors. Remember, we've got the juniors, we have got the seniors as well. Let's go 3 wide for a split moment there as Gabbiani has Valenteus go by him, and Reed is caught up, and Gabbiani is touching Reed, and that's not what Reed wanted to see right there. He needs to catch up. Van Hicks is going to see, remember, if everything stands at the moment, Reed will be the champion. Lumberg will be the champion. I think you can also crown your junior champions. We'll look at that later when those points get tallied. But again, Van Hicks, once again, he just finds himself outbraking himself. And he's been driving for 35 minutes. You think at some point he'd realise he's been outbraking himself.
Yeah, the Aussie's trying to do what he can, but he's trying to do the old lick the stamp and send it Daniel Ricciardo style, and now this could be the opportunity. They've got that's Jesus Sanchez Morales going around the outside at Piper and into Revolver on Joni Hagner, and that might give Van Hicks oh look, this door's wide open for the Australian, but it's not going to be the case because that's going to be uphill. Through into turn 8 at Redmond, through into 9, and then it's going to be the downhill run from Mike Knight corner downwards through into last corner. But you've got to fancy the Australians' chances as Jacob Reed is closing in hand over fist on Valenteus as they go into first corner. Gap is about 2/10. Reed has now got a bit of clear track in front of him and the race leader. Reed will want to cap it off in style because we've got 3 minutes and 40 to go. Both class leads are still down to the wire.
Feel sorry for Christian in the director's chair. At some point, he may just have to make a big-time double screen instead of having picture-in-picture, because every time you look, who goes into turn 1? It's the leader of the GTP. Nothing happened. Right behind them, the GTOs, and it's absolute madness out there at the moment. And as Adam Linder would once say, this is vintage IMSA Vintage, or classic IMSA Vintage, or IMI Vintage, Cam Porter would like to say. As Van Hicks still looking for opportunity, and with that damaged car of Matthew Cockerham, he's going to try to see if there's a chance, but Joni Hagner blocks it off there, moves in and takes an early line into the hairpin corner, and I think that was him saying, look, you may get the door open, but try the dog flap instead, because I'm closing this door up for you. You're going to have to find another way around with 2.5 minutes left to go.
Yeah, so leader's about to come across the line to complete lap 30. So that will give us about 3 laps of racing still to go. When you consider that Valenteus and Reed have been running in the 16.7s and the 16.9s, so we could be quite minimal on time. It could give us 1 and 1 more or 1 and 2 more. But Van Hicks is still trying to close that gap to Joni Hagner. The gap has now expanded on the start-finish straight to around about 3.5 tenths. So this is now the opportunity for Jacob Reed. He's got to go for broke now as they go down the back stretch in towards turn 5 at the hairpin. And Reed gets the slipstream, but he's not quite close enough. He's got to be a bit braver on the brakes as they go down the hill into Piper and Revolver. Gap is about 2.5 tenths of a second. But Reed is going to be he's going to have to hustle now. He's really got to push Valenteus to the limit and beyond, as they've got one of the GTOs just up ahead trying to get through on, and that's blocking Valenteus. This is giving Reed the opportunity he needed, but they both get round the outside before Mike Knight corner, and Valenteus once again manages to scarper away.
Now this is interesting. Well, let's see where they cross the line. Remember, a lap time around here is 1:27. Well, 1:17, sorry, 1 minute 20. There's 2 laps, and I think Valenteus is out of fuel. I think Valenteus was hoping that was going to be white flag. He's been at such a pace, they got to go around on 1 more time after this. That is a big development right now. If the white flag did come out, he would have been able to take it. But if he's slow on fuel, he's having a fuel save, and he's lifting. It's lift and coast. I think Valenteus doesn't have the fuel.
That's going to be a real, well, it depends on how much lifting and coasting he's going to need to do, because in that first section alone, Jacob Reed, 18.45, Valenteus, no surprise you said about the lift and coast, Craig, 19.24 in that opening sector, but hopefully Valenteus able to use the downhill momentum through Piper and Revolver as they're about to cross the stripe for Sector 2. And they'll do so on the run through into Turn 8 at Redmond. And Valenteus and that's the 22 off the circuit. And that's Ryan Turcotte, who was running 17th in GTO, but Jacob Reed now has a little bit of daylight, and Valenteus in the pit lane. This is going to give Gabriel Martinez a possible opportunity at the runner-up spot.
Big time development. And the question is, if they're struggling for fuel, what about the GTOs? Because they were talking about fuel before the race. Gabriel Martinez is just coming around Hobbs. This could be a last lap dash here with Valenteus versus Gabriel Martinez. And in fact, I think Valenteus, he's not even in his box right now. Gap is 10 seconds. Johnny Hagner will take the white flag. Valenteus will just get a quick flash of fuel. Oh, how bad it is. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. And Gabriel's going to take P2. But it's going to be a tough battle between Valenteus, Van Hicks, Hagner, and I'll tell you what, Van Hicks is losing out as well. It's a fuel battle to the line. This is the final lap right now as Van Hicks has to just hold on now. It is maximum fuel save, and that is not code for lift and let someone by. He knows he's struggling. It would put Noah Lundberg into P2. This is the battle, though. Martinez has to find a way to stop the alien. What can he do on Valenteus? I don't think he'll get much. Valenteus will want this with everything he's got. But Jacob Reed is going to have just a cruise to the line. He will take the championship as well with this victory, but we've got to keep our eyes on this. In fact, Van Hicks is still slow out there, but for Jacob Reed, cometh the man, cometh the hour. He has beaten the alien, and he has crowned himself one. Jacob Reed not only takes the victory, like Michael Schumacher, he takes the championship at Okayama, and what a season it's been with one to go. I don't think Valenteus has got anything.
Martinez is going to come through Mike Knight corner. He's got a bit of GTO traffic in front. And the man in the number 8 Playboy, he's played his cards right and got through to second. Valenteus will round out the top 3. But more to the point, it is going to be a case of what happens now in the GTO side of things. Jody Hagner, the Flying Finn, has made it count here at round number 11. He's going to pick up the win in the number 3 car. As oh, big spin. That was Dylan Freckleton, I think, just back in shot. Hagner takes the win. Van Hixen will come across the line, but it will be minimal between him as the Australian. But Noel Lundberg, with damage to the right front of the number 4 from the Netherlands, will come out of the final corner and will take championship victory here in GTO, and he's celebrating already.
And why not? In fact, what a place for all the championships to be decided today, because it was already settled for Brandon White in the GTO Juniors. Noel Lundberg will take home the GTOs, and everybody in the Audi start to do their trademark drifts. And of course, even with Dechari getting ahead there. Well, actually, no. I tell you what, Ricciardi got ahead of Dechari, I apologize, but that would be the Junior Championship already settled, and very tough there for the battles. But let's get to those standings, because, well, we thought about it, and the lap counter was 0.04. They were going to be close, as Jacob Reed, he made sure he wasn't close. He had the fuel, and he beats Gabriel Martinez. But most importantly, Valenteus, who comes home in 3rd. That's the championship for Jacob Reed. Dylan Freckleton will take 4th, with Shadia Mad making his return into 5th. Brendan Lim goes up 6 places to 6th, with Fabian Jungbluth in 7th. David Ricciardi will be 8th, with Emilio Dechari in 9th. Andre Felipe Diaz, first man a lap down. He did make up 5 places, though. Behind him was Gianluca Gabbiani up 3 places into 11th. Jesus Sanchez Moraz will be in 12th, with Matthew Cockerham in 3rd. And then Daniel Ruiz had a little bit of an early retirement there in 14th. Henning Swebig parking the car after incident in 15th. Samuel Nuisha will be in 16th, and Christopher Lesajak, after that moment to start the race, he retired in 17th.
Jody Hagner would take the win in the GTO side of things by nearly 2 seconds ahead of the charging Australian, who had to lift and coast. Joran Verhicks. Noel Lundberg takes P3, and with it takes the GTO title in 3rd position after a great battle between him and Andreas Schuster, which saw the two go wheel to wheel at certain points. And Arturas Condelis, what a run by Jack David Spickett. Started 21st, finishes P6 ahead of Idka Cotisalo, Roman Bello, Josh Brain, and Martin Krejcik, who round out the top 10, covered by just over 31.5 seconds after their 30 laps. Matthias Havdahl, Thorben Paulik, Brandon White, Stefan Leslie, Richard Heinemann, David Tomansky, Ryan Turcott, Timothy Reed, and Christopher Staverman, with Ernesto van Zelst, who did have a mechanical black flag, ends up rounding out the top 20, with James Morgan and Ian Haycox unfortunately out with 7 and 10 laps remaining.
Well, I don't know about you, chat, and I don't know about you, Alex. I love a fuel battle, and even though this is a sprint race, sometimes you do look to try and have just a little bit more fuel that you needed, but we do have a chance for a quick interview with one of the drivers. Not going to be a case of a fuel issue for him, as we're just waiting with Joni Hagner. And Joni Hagner, a great victory today, but I want to ask the important question. How's your fuel?
Fuel was okay. It was quite random because my timing and fuel calculator didn't work at all. So it was like diving in the dark.
I think a lot of drivers were diving in the dark because we saw Van Hicks having to fuel save, Valenteus having to take fuel, and other drivers just needing to do their own set of fuel saving. But it looked like a very commanding lead for you once you took it after the mistake from Lundberg. What is it about this track that you enjoy? Because you look very comfortable out there today.
Yeah, maybe I look at, but I loaded the wrong setup with the wrong gearbox, and it was very awkward to use. But it's not like slow, but you need to shift it few times too much awkward places.
Well, at the end of the day, of course, it is a victory once again for you. I know the championship is sorted. However, with one race to go, how have you felt this season? Because you've had a lot of close battles this season, and it feels like you've been up there, and then unfortunately sometimes you have had a little bit of incidents, but it looks like it's been a very strong season for you.
Yeah, I have been having fun with this car again, and few times I have run it out of fuel and one crash and nothing major.
Nothing major. Well, next week, the final week of the season, we're at the Algarve. Your thoughts on that race before we let you go for the day?
I have no idea because I haven't driven there maybe once. So I have no idea.
Well, Joni, that's one more than me, so I think you're very prepared for this compared to me. But Joni Hagner for Glacier Racing, congratulations on another victory this season. We look forward to seeing you on the track next week.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Joni Hagner there winning the GTOs. And Alex, that is going to do it today. But like I said, next week is the Algarve. And that's a track that, if you thought about elevation changes today, that's a lot of elevation changes next week.
A lot of overtaking opportunities going down into Primera at turn 1. You've got Torre Vip at turn 5, and then you've got the big roller coaster at the top part of the circuit. It's a wonderful location, and I couldn't think of a better place to close off this season of the IMSA Vintage Series.
No, it's going to be fantastic, and we look forward to seeing that next Saturday, of course. But as we just start to round off the day, I want to give a shout out, of course, to Alex and Christian in the booth, and of course, Dougie as per usual. And if you do like what you see, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because you don't want to miss any more races, because we've got one more this weekend as the Lotus 79s head to two more, sorry, because I was getting ahead of myself. The Lotus 79s head to a wet Fuji. But before that, the Sim Racing Republic start the GT sprints for the GT Open at Road America tomorrow. That's going to be fun, because anything at Road America is fun. And like I said, Fuji in the possible wet for the Lotus 79s. And then we get back to the week. Porsche Owner Club heads to Mugello, followed by the MX-5 United. Mazdas at Bathurst. I've seen an iRacing moment with that before. We may see another one, but we aren't going to see any more moments out here. The championships are wrapped up. But of course, have you got your Black Friday deals wrapped up? 50% off for new members, 25%. You've got until Tuesday. And if you're watching this later in the week, you've missed your chance. That you don't want to miss out. You don't want to miss out next week, because even though the championships are sorted, these drivers still race to win. The cars aren't real, but the racing is. So until next time, race clean, race hard, and we will see you on the track.